Hi, my name is Cameron Schmidt. I'm a clinical anatomy research fellow here at the Seattle Science Foundation. I'm joined today by Dr. Linda Liau, a professor and interim chair of the department at UCLA Neurosurgery, as well as director of UCLA's Brain Tumor Center. Dr. Liau is joining us today as an honorary guest lecturer, this morning giving a talk on her work in translational experimental immunotherapeutics in the treatment of glioblastoma.
Yes.
And we're just going to sit down today and have a little bit of a chat about how Dr. Liau got to where she is today. Dr. Liau, thank you so much for taking this time. I know they're
you're welcome.
keeping you busy today, so I appreciate taking some time to talk with me. I wanted to start by asking a little bit about your process of getting here. I know at quite a young age you graduated from Brown with a dual degree in biochemistry and political science, going on to Stanford to do your M.D., and then UCLA for your Ph.D. in neuroscience, your neurosurgical residency, and your M.B.A. But going back to that very beginning, when was it that you first knew you wanted to go into medicine, and at that time did you know you wanted to go into neuro, or is that something that came a little later?
Good question. I actually started college thinking I was going to, perhaps go into law school or something like that. I majored in political science and, took all the classes and all that. But I must say I realized that when I went home for the holidays, I could never win any arguments with my sister, who happens to be a lawyer now. So it dawned on me that maybe it wasn't really the thing that I was necessarily good at or passionate about. But what I really loved was were the courses in science and in biochemistry and those kind of courses. And in order to pay for college, I went to Brown, which was a private institution. So in order to help pay for college, I worked part-time in a lab, and at the time just washing glassware was what I did. But I must say I met I met some amazing professors that were turned out to be wonderful mentors in terms of getting me interested and intrigued about the science behind what they were doing. So I went from just working in the lab cleaning glassware to actually doing a research project, and then I eventually got majored in biochemistry, and then decided that I wanted to pursue medicine. So that's when I did the usual. You take the MCATs and I did all the pre-med courses, and I applied for medical school. And I think it was in medical school that I got really fascinated by the neurosciences. I went to Stanford, and I met a neurologist, Dr. Steve Perutka, who actually had worked with Dr. Saul Snyder on the discovery of these new subclasses of serotonin receptors. Back then in the 80s, there weren't all these different subclasses that we need to know today. So I thought that was fascinating, in terms of the thought that these receptors in the brain control such vast functions as depression and anxiety and all these kind of other neurologic disorders. So that's when I got interested in neuroscience. It was actually during medical school, and I pursued research in that area. I initially actually was thinking of neurology as a subspecialty. But then when I did my third year clinical rotations, I met a woman at Stanford, Dr. Frances Conley, and she was one of the first women neurosurgeons in the country. And this was 25 years ago, when this happened, and it was actually quite I guess Dr. Conley was just, a wonderful role model, and she was just an amazing person. She ran the Beta Breakers. She, she was a javelin thrower. She just was amazing, and also a wonderful role model. One of those people that, and this is what I, now, try to aspire to be. It's one of those people that will, even for students, pull them aside and really kind of get to know them, and actually kind of allow me to get to know her and what she does or did, and I think that was very special. So I think having good role models is definitely very very important, and I just happened to find a role model in in one of the very few women neurosurgeons in a very male-dominated field. So that's what led me to apply for neurosurgical residency, and I went. I did my residency at UCLA predominantly because I grew up in Los Angeles, and actually during medical school, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I wanted to get close back to home. So I started my neurosurgical residency at UCLA, and during residency, she had metastatic progression of her cancer, and I must say that's what led me to go into the research aspects of what I do. Because if you've ever had a family member with cancer, it's one of those things that you feel very helpless. Even if you're a doctor, you can't help the one person you love the most, from this devastating disease. And what I felt at the time was that in order to make progress in the field, I had to learn more. So that's when I actually, after residency, I went back and did a Ph.D. in neuroscience, specifically in neuro-oncology, because my mom's cancer had spread to the brain, and that was the one aspect of her cancer that no one could cure at the time. So I did, my PhD and postdoctoral work in neuroscience, neuro-oncology, and more specifically neuroimmunology. And I must say, it was just fascinating. It brought, it brought such different perspectives into, what we do clinically as a neurosurgeon. We take out brain tumors and we operate on these tumors, but then to really help these patients, I think we needed to be able to offer them something beyond, just taking out the tumor, and that's kind of how, after I got my PhD and did my postdoctoral work, I started my own laboratory at UCLA, and for the last 25 years, we've been studying brain cancer and brain cancer therapeutics, with the goal of really trying to figure out, why these tumors occur and how we could best, help patients. And I must say, in the back of my mind, I always have had, my mom's diagnosis and disease, prevalent in kind of why I do what I do. She unfortunately passed away, actually, right before I finished my residency. And actually, it was 2 weeks before my sister's wedding. So we actually had the wedding, because the wedding was planned, but my mom actually was very sick right, before the wedding. So we actually had her wedding in the hospital room. We had the hospital chaplains there, and then we did the whole wedding. And I think, to this day, I really wish that there was something, that someone could have done, for my mother at the time. But I think it's that has driven me to stay in this field for so long, because I think, and I can empathize with the patients and what they must be going through, when you're struck with a life-threatening disease. So So at the end of the day, I guess in answer to your question, in terms of, how do I get to where I am, I don't think it was ever an intent to have a career or to do something, to be somewhere or to whatever. It was actually just driven by wanting to, find a cure for a disease that's just so devastating.
Absolutely. Was there ever a time in that process that you maybe questioned that direction, that you were facing some challenges and you thought it wasn't for you, or has it been really just a straight path forward?
Yeah, I think it's been a straight path forward because luckily I've had wonderful people to work with, and and it's always so exciting to have find new discoveries in the lab, and being able to take that discovery onto a clinical trial. And it's and I must say, I'm not saying it's worked every time. I mean, it's been very frustrating in terms of I would say for every experiment that worked, there were probably 10 to 20 that didn't. So it is, it does, take its toll sometimes. I mean, I must say there are many times along the way where you think, oh, could have, had an easier path if, actually did go to law school, did something different. But I think, I think ultimately, at least for me, what drives me to do what I do is not the oh, I am a neurosurgeon concept, or I became a neurosurgeon. I think it's really what I could do with that ability and that information, and how I could potentially help other patients like my mom. And I think that's in itself a very fulfilling thing. I must say I wake up every morning and really enjoy what I do. I mean, don't tell my bosses this, but I do it for free. I mean, I like it that much. But I think that's what I think we should all strive for in a career, right?
Finding something that we love and never work a day in your life.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And it seems odd coming from a neurosurgeon because it is a lot of work. It's not like, it's not a lot of work, but if you don't view it as work, I don't think I can't imagine anything else I would rather do.
No, sure. And I don't know to what extent you'll be able to answer this, given your previous questions, but I'm curious at whatever point you decided you wanted to go into neurosurgery and you started down that very long path of medical school and then residency, Ph.D., all of that, and then getting out on the other end of that, I oftentimes hear doctors talking about how the reality of what they worked towards, the reality of what they ended up at, was different to the idea that they held going into it. And so I was curious if you found that. It sounds like you really enjoy what you do now, and it's everything you wanted it to be. But
certainly there are the realities of the changes in medicine, and medicine has changed actually quite a bit since I finished medical school more than 25 years ago, and it's changing now. As you know, we're at this point in healthcare policy and politics where there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what's going to go forward next year, but I think part of it is just knowing that things will change and expecting it to change, and not having that bother you, because I think if you're to say I went into medicine with a certain expectation and it's not what I expected, I think in a way that's somewhat naive, because it's supposed to change and things are supposed to evolve, and I think it's just prudent for doctors to to adapt and grow and change with the change in the demands of society and of healthcare reimbursement and policy. And I guess, and so that's one reason why, a few years ago I actually went back to school. I went back to the UCLA School of Management and got an M.B.A. because, one of the things that's changing, obviously, is the whole concept of healthcare reimbursement and how doctors get paid, what's considered value in healthcare. It's a different world than, anything I learned when I went to medical school. So in order to better understand that, I myself went back to school, and I kind of just view, I don't view it as your career as an end game, like, you finish your MD, now you're a doctor, then this is what you do. I think it's a whole process of lifelong learning, and you just learn along the way, and I think that's what makes it challenging, and it makes it fun. I think if you're stagnant, that's where I think that the resentment built in, that I've done things a certain way, I was taught to do this way, this isn't how things are now, this isn't what I signed up for. But in reality, I don't think any career is the same as it was 25 years ago.
Sure.
So
I was going to ask you about that MBA. I was going to ask if there were any ways that kind of surprised you. You talked about this a little bit in the ways that your Ph.D. in neuroscience, you found you could relate a lot of what you'd learned clinically in a very new perspective. And I was curious if there was anything you found from your MBA that kind of surprised you, that all of a sudden you were finding links in the work that you were doing, whether it be with patients in your lab.
Right. Yeah. No. Very good question. And I must say, I guess, the reason I got the PhD, as I said, was to find, ultimately I wanted to find a cure for my mom's cancer and learn more about that. So the reason I went back and got the MBA was not the fact to get the MBA, but it was just to really understand and learn more about healthcare dynamics. I think healthcare, as well as science, as well as running my lab now, all of this is much more teamwork and team science than it used to be in the past. Like if you've read scientific papers these days, there are no single author papers anymore. There are these papers with dozens and dozens of authors. So there's a lot of, the advances in science and as well as in healthcare are really based on team dynamics and team interactions. Because it's, diseases are so complex, and it's never just, that one doctor, that Marcus Welby doctor that kind of just comes in and diagnoses everything, because no one can know everything about everything. You really have to get different teams involved. So I think one thing that I did learn in business school that I think is very different from graduate school and medical school is the whole concept of how to work in a team and how to enhance your team interactions and promote kind of the common goals as a team. And one thing I remember very distinctly that was somewhat different was that so for instance, like all our assignments, all our projects were graded as a team. So we'd have these like group projects, and you have to do the problem sets, do the projects as a team. So it wasn't that you could have one person do the work or and you got graded in terms of how well you got your team together to finish a goal, and which was very different from medical school. It's very much if you study and you get you could get through with very individual accomplishments. In business school, they almost don't even allow you to do that. They really force you to work in a team, and that's something I think that's important, because it does help you, adapt to the way I think science and medicine are going as well, because it's much more team dynamics than it used to be, I think.
Doing it alone.
Yeah.
Well, my final question, kind of sticking in this academic realm, you're obviously someone who's had a lot of experience, a lot of success moving through various degrees and programs, and I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of keystone or cornerstone habits, habits that they set the stage for larger success. Little things like rather than coming home, flipping on the TV, you make yourself a sandwich and sit down and start working. And I just suppose I was curious if there was anything for you that you found, something that you do that really helped you keep on track and keep moving through, and whether that be your motivation of what was driving you, whether that be some small study habit, but did you have anything that kind of percolated its way through all of your work and success?
You know, I don't know of anything specifically, but I do think I'm a little OCD, a little obsessive compulsive, in the sense that like I like to clear things off my desk. I don't like to have clutter, and I don't like a lot of stuff in my email box. So rather than kind of let it
Work
sit,
in your favor.
I just if I get a thing, an email, I just kind of try to take care of it and then kind of get it out of the box, so I don't have to, have it come back week after week. And in a way, I think that's good, because then hopefully I get kind of get things taken care of along the way, as opposed to procrastinate on things. So, but I'm not sure if that was intentional or just a secondary side effect of my OCD.
Well, thank you again so much for taking the time.
Thank
I've really
you.
enjoyed talking to you, and
Yeah.
hopefully everyone out there watching has learned a little bit more about you, and hopefully maybe gain some direction in some of the decisions they're making going forward.
Well, good luck with everything, and I hope you do get into the medical school you want to get into, and you have a very successful career.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.